Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Victory Road's World Cup of VGC, sponsored by Elgato. My name is Stefan Mott, and I'm here with David Partington. That was a fun set that you guys just got to watch, huh?
Yes. Hi, Stefan. How is it going, man? Good to have you on the stream. And we are here for match 2 of our top 16 sets. We've got Spain versus Chile for you guys. And it's a very high profile match as well from these two players, as we will certainly be seeing, Stefan. So, what do you know that's coming?
So, we were looking at the stats a little bit, and I think anybody who's been following World Cup knows that Spain has just kind of been a dominant force. Their team is incredibly strong, but I think it's safe to say that they've been dominating even harder than expected. One thing that I noticed is that they have, if I'm not mistaken, 5 unbeaten players so far. They went 23-1 in sets in the group stage. So that's scary. But this set's going to be really cool because we have a battle of the undefeateds. Both of our players in this match have not yet recorded a loss. So this should be an incredible match to start things off.
Absolutely. So let's have a look at the teams at the moment. So 0-0 still currently. Everybody's very busy this week. So Friday evening is where it kicks off for this matchup. So as we can see, it is 7 versus 7 now in the top 16. No chance of a draw this time. It is win or lose, bust, or whatever the alternative is to that. So let's have a look at the players a little bit more closely. So at Ramsés, Quintana, especially. Starting with Javier Ponce, from Chile, Zacian, Rillaboom, Incineroar, Amoonguss, Regieleki, and Urshifu Rapid Strike, with some excellent accolades as well. Qualified for the LATAM Players Cup 3 and 2, and is also the Chile national champion of 2016. So a very strong player going into this tournament.
Yeah, a player with a lot of experience. It's always interesting to see how far back those accomplishments go because, of course, we have a lot of players who have gotten into VGC in the last sort of couple of years. But then a lot of these players like Javier who have been around for a while and have been really, really good staples of their scene for a while. I talked a little bit about how both these players are undefeated. Javier is currently 3-0. He hasn't played every single match, but every time he's come, he has been able to bring a win for his team. So it's going to be really interesting to see whether he can make that work. It's a very standard-looking Zacian team on his side. And let's have a look at what his opponent is going to be bringing.
Yeah, Ramsés Quintana of Spain, Zacian as well, Incineroar, Amoonguss, and then another Pelipper for everyone here, along with the Ludicolo this time, so going even harder on the rain mode here, and that Grimmsnarl, and some very strong, very recent accolades as well for Ramsés. Top 8 to the Victory Road Circuit Winter Finals, Victory Road Circuit Winter Qualifier number 2 runner-up, and the Rose Tower Clash number 11 champion. So, again, another very strong player, but we do have a Zacian mirror this time. One with a little bit of rain, and one a little bit more standard with that Regieleki as well, which looks like it's going to be pretty strong into this matchup. So, 2 undefeated players battling out in the top 16. It's a very high match, and I'm very excited for this, Stefan.
I am as well. This is going to be a super interesting match. It's going to come down, I think, a lot to the Pelipper versus Regieleki kind of a dynamic because both of those Pokemon are really the only method of speed control that these players are likely to have. Maybe Ludicolo has something like an Icy Wind, maybe a Thunder Wave on that Grimmsnarl, but the Regieleki is the only thing that can provide that kind of speed control on the more standard Zacian that Javier is bringing. So a little bit of an awkward matchup, I think, from Javier's perspective, but it's not an easy matchup to run into a Zacian mirror, even if you're on Ramsés' side of the field as well. So this is going to be a really interesting one. We'll have to see how they decide to approach this. We'll have to see if either of them is bringing out some secret spicy tech, but it's going to be a really cool match. I think that's safe to say.
It is, and Ramsés has used quite a variety of teams as well across his sets. So in these last 3, anyway, we've seen Calyrex Shadow versus Hong Kong, we've seen Kyogre that he's used versus South Korea, and most recently the Zacian as well. Quite a standard build as well for when he did use it, but he's definitely used the Ludicolo and Grimmsnarl this time, which he hasn't before at all. I'm just looking at the team now. Let's hope that for at least for Ramsés' sake, that Javier doesn't have a tract on his Amoonguss, because that's looking very good as well. Goodbye with the Spore. But other than that, It's going to be a really exciting match. Javier actually, as well as used Zacian previously as well, and he also beat UK in the last stage of the group stages with the Palkia team. So both these players have a lot of experience using a variety of teams. So Zacian Incineroar on Ramsés' end, and it's a very strong lead too. You've got that pivoting, you've got that fake out coming out, and a very different lead, but a very strong one too. The Regieleki and Rillaboom over on Javier's end. So the Grassy Surge does go up, as we see before the Incineroar, which is not too surprising. But a lot of pivoting action could definitely happen this turn.
Yeah, this is a really nice lead, I think, from Javier's perspective, because you have that faster fake out option on the Rillaboom. You can go for a fake out on the Zacian plus a Volt Switch to guarantee your own switch in. You avoid the potential of an Intimidate on a potential Zacian lead by just leaving it in the back. And of course, Regieleki could just start to work its way towards that real speed control with the Electro Web. A bit of an unfortunate move selection on the Regieleki set here. It's running Rain Dance, which is not really going to be something that we're going to see in this match. So a little bit of an unfortunate move option there, but something that's a little interesting to note. Fake Out's going to come in, hits that Incineroar, and I assume we're going to be seeing a Volt Switch or an Electro Web coming in. Looks like actually just a Thunderbolt right on into the Zacian. About 40% is not too bad.
No, and the Play Rough coming out from Ramsés as well. So that's definitely seen picking up in usage. Attack drop on the Regieleki, not going to make too much difference there. And Grass Drain does end up recovering Regieleki a little bit more back. So Regieleki still is offering a lot more offense going into the latter part of this turn. But yeah, we do see the Thunderbolt there, and there were only 2 electric moves. So, and I'm pretty sure that's Electro Web for the other one. So
no Volt Switch, huh?
No Volt Switch there, Stefan. So, but there's likely a U-turn on this Rillaboom as well. But I think for Javier, he needs to position his Zacian in at the moment, because the Incineroar is on the field for Ramsés, so he does need to pivot it out before he pivots it back in for another Intimidate. But Parting Shot is a very real possibility, and that could go into either slot at this point. Javier's end, he's probably got Protect the Regieleki, but let's see what happens here. It does come out this turn. Let's see if Ramsés has read it.
I do like the decision to go for the Thunderbolt, given that there is no Volt Switch. The damage onto that Zacian, especially in the mirror, is going to make it a little bit uncomfortable going up against a potential Zacian coming out from Javier, because a Behemoth Blade from there, especially with the Intrepid Sword boost, should be able to just take out that Zacian. You have the option for Electro Web, but instead it's going to be the Amoonguss that comes on in. And, well, Parting Shot comes in, hits the Amoonguss. That's not really something that Amoonguss cares about too much.
It is not. So Amoonguss gets in relatively for free here. Zacian is obviously still on the field, but it was not targeted this turn, thanks to the swift action from this pivoting on Javier's end. Amoonguss for Ramsés, though, does also come in here. So it's going to be Battle of the Amoongusses here, and to see how... I'm able to see this, like, the speed interactions as well, because you could run, like, minimum speed on Amoongusses, but sometimes you just run no speed, but you might run a Calm Nature or something. So one of these Amoongusses is going to be faster than the other, and that could mean the difference between getting KO'd and getting a Spore off before the other as well. So speed interaction are yet to be...
It's going to be interesting to see just what you were mentioning about those speed tiers. I wouldn't be too surprised to see the Amoonguss on Javier's side be something like a non-min speed nature, just because there are a lot of things in the meta that do sort of come out around that sort of 80 to 90 speed tier, things like Incin, things like potential Grimmsnarl, both on the opposite side of the field. So with Tailwind on his with Electro Web on his side, if you can get things down to like -2, you might even get to the point where Spore can outspeed some of these things. But regardless, we've got a bit of a Behemoth Blade coming on in. Not quite going to be enough to knock out that Rillaboom, but still doing quite a lot of damage. The Pollen Puff is going to eliminate the damage dealt by that Regieleki entirely here. So a lot of the tempo that Javier was actually getting, struggling to maintain it. The Spore is going to really allow him to try to get himself into a better position once again, especially if that Zacian stays asleep for 2-3 turns.
Yeah, that's a really big Spore there. And a pretty safe slot for Javier as well. So I'm kind of surprised Ramsés didn't play around that a little bit more, especially with his Incineroar on the back. Maybe that was safety goggles. You could have maybe switched in the Ludicolo as well. and no substitute reveal on the Zacian either. So I wonder if maybe there's a different move set for this Zacian, because I think substitute might have been quite a nice option there. But it does go to sleep, but it's not being threatened by a lot of damage still, based on what's on the field. So, and Rillaboom just goes for a U-turn to get straight back out of there.
Yeah, this is going to be a really interesting situation as well, because the effects of this sleep are very much so going to be determined by how long it stays asleep for. If it's a one-turn sleep, all of a sudden that score doesn't really matter, because as you mentioned, there wasn't that much in the way of damage output here on Javier's side of the field. But if he does stay asleep for 2 or 3 turns, now all of a sudden there's this Zacian that it's got to at least consider going into. Oh, but the read on the U-turn comes out, and that's going to be, well, a bunch of sleeping dogs. This is a bit of a weird situation that we find ourselves in now, David.
Yes, really well, Stefan. So we've got a complete mirror at the moment. Both, like, everyone's at full HP. Both the Zacians are sleeping. And so the Amoonguses kind of don't really know what to do. Like, they can't offer much damage versus each other or versus other Zacians at the moment. So Ramsés is the first to decide to break this quad mirror at the moment into the Incineroar, and especially that is safety goals. It's a very safe switch, and you definitely want to be intimidating that Zacian as well, and as well as on this Amoongus. But as you mentioned before, Stefan, if this Amoongus is say even max speed, it could actually outspeed some Incineroars, which could be pretty cool. And that means you could even get a Pollen Puff off on a Zacian before a Flare Blitz. But
an interesting piece of information just got revealed as well there. So it could, of course, be a speed tie, but it looks like the Zacian on Javier's side is a little bit faster, which is going to be something that he's definitely going to note down in at least a little bit of a mental notebook, because that could be a pretty big deal in the context of the entire set.
It certainly could. And Fake Out is what comes out from Incineroar, and revealing the Rocky Helmet on Javier's end, a very nice item to be having there. Javier's Zacian takes the first turn of sleep as on the immediate wake. What Javier is actually locking into this turn, and I think that is a Spore straight into the slot again. The Fake Out. I missed that bit.
Yeah, so the Fake Out there, really nicely played there by Ramsés there, because now Zacian +3, no Incineroar in the back for Javier. As long as he doesn't get Spored again, which really shouldn't be a problem when you consider a +3 Behemoth Blade going into that annoying little mushroom, really should just allow the Zacian to kind of go burr here. I think that Javier really needs, A, his Zacian to wake up this turn, which it doesn't, and B, he would have needed to probably, at the very least, land a big hit into the Zacian, maybe even crit to try to remove it, but that's not going to be the case here, as down goes Amoongus effectively for free. We see the Ludicolo coming in for Ramsés, giving him potentially even more fake-out pressure, and all of a sudden, this game that was looking like it was a bit of a slower one is been, well, tipped very heavily in Spain's favor.
It definitely has. So I'm surprised to see the Rillaboom switch in there, actually, and because Rillaboom does actually naturally outspeed Ludicolo, but imagine if you're running Pelipper with your Ludicolo, you might want to run a lot of speed on it to outspeed other things once you're in the range. So Ludicolo's probably faster than Rillaboom, so I respect Javier's decision here, but I think at that point you need to be at least trading fake outs or trying to fake out the Ludicolo so that your own Zacian can at least get an attack off, because we have seen it outspeed Ramsés' Zacian from those sleep turns. So, but Incineroar comes in yet again, and Javier is going to be taking another Intimidate. So he's definitely going to need a critical hit at this point to be able to break down this Zacian. But Regieleki does also have a lot of speed on its end, but it does go for the Protect, maybe just scout out for the Fake Out on Ludicolo's end. And we do see the Wake Up finally on Javier's end too.
I think that was a really nice read there by Ramsés. The switch there looked to me like a read on the double protect. You maintain the fake out pressure by bringing that Incineroar into the field, and knowing that the Ludicolo would not be able to accomplish too much going into a double protect. Really, really nice there by Ramsés. And now there's very little left in the way of options for Javier in this game number 1. Even if Zacian goes into that into the opposing Zacian, we know there's been a whole bunch of Intimidate cycling coming on out. Without a crit, it's not going to do very much. Fake Out's enough to take out the Regieleki as well, which is also pretty nice. And I guess we'll see if the crit lands. It's the moment of truth, but it's going to be a lot more than just one crit that's going to be required here. He's going to need a series of them Regardless, Javier does not pull that out, and the Taya Supremo, the Behemoth Blade, is going to go right on in, and a +3 Behemoth Blade is going to have no trouble taking out this restricted Pokemon.
Absolutely going down there. Ramsés has played this game very nicely. Yeah, as you were saying, Stefan, really nice play to go for the switching of the second fake outer, predicting the double protect. And even then, it was an entirely absolute read either. Switching your Intimidator, just intimidate the Zacian a little bit more, and your Zacian is still so healthy, it's not going to take a lot of damage. The two Pokemon still attack, so it's a really nice position that he put himself in, and it really paid off to the best that he could have hoped for. So Javier does go for the forfeit. The Rillaboom is not going to be able to take out the rest of Ramsés' team. So we're looking into game 2 now. So I think we knew the Regieleki would play a big part in this, but I think, as you said, we realized there's no Volt Switch there, so it does make things a little bit harder. You can't use that offset that frailness of Regieleki to do a lot of damage and get yourself out of there. You have to stay in and take a hit if you want to do a lot of damage with it, and it's something that outspeeds a Zacian and is probably, at least from what you brought, one of the main things you want to use against it. It's definitely hampering a bit having that little Rain Dance tech there.
Yeah, so going into game number 2, I do think not having the Volt Switch makes this really, really difficult, because that's one of the things, right? You want to have that Regieleki. Your opponent has a Pelipper, your opponent has Ludicolo that you can hit neutrally, and you want to be able to drop those sort of Electro Webs. But we know that the Zacian on Javier's side is a little bit faster. So does he really need the Regieleki here? Because a lot of the time that one Electro Web is just to make sure that your Zacian is the faster one. So it looks like he is planning on potentially foregoing the Regieleki this time around, which I don't think is a bad idea. He really, really needs that Intimidate with the Incineroar, and double Fake Out is also not bad to have into a Swords Dancing Zacian as well, because you need to basically give yourself as many ways to delay your opponent as possible to position your own pieces as well as you can, because if we see that Zacian on Ramsés' side of the field get up a Swords Dance essentially on a free turn like we did in the last game, it's going to be extremely difficult to stop. And the double Fake Out will at least help to alleviate that pressure a little bit.
It will. And I want to talk about the Ludicolo a bit more, actually, on Ramsés' end, because it's a really nice option, especially, obviously, with the rain support too. But even apart from that, it's your water type going into an Incineroar is obviously very nice. But as a water type, it's also not weak to electric, so it can take a hit from Regieleki, it can take a hit from Rillaboom as well, and it offers a fast Fake Out as well. So even despite not bringing the rain, it's actually a really nice bring for Ramsés at the moment. And as we saw, Fake Out plus Zacian is still very strong. And as soon as you play defensive versus this particular Zacian on Ramsés' end, he could get a Sword Stunt straight up. So even with an Incineroar now coming on Javier's end, it's still very scary for him in his position, because if you call a turn wrong, something could go very wrong from there. But we do see the leads now. Ludicolo and Zacian versus Incineroar and Amoonguss. So a little bit switch up of the leads here. And Javier's definitely more on the defensive side with some more pivoting option and some sleep, which I'm kind of liking.
Yeah, this is going to be a little interesting to see where that Ludicolo's Fake Out decides to go. I think it's pretty safe to assume that it's going to be faster than the Incineroar, so it could just cancel out the Fake Out. But yeah, the Spore into the Zacian is going to be a really interesting option as well. Something is going to happen here, and the Zacian is going to switch on out. Now is the big question, right? Is the Incineroar running safety goggles? It's not particularly uncommon, but it's also not a guarantee. If that Incineroar goes to sleep, things are going to get very, very awkward here very, very fast. But in the meantime, that Ludicolo is going to just be able to fake on out that Incineroar. And based on the way this turn was played, I would assume safety goggles. Yep, there we go.
Yeah, so I was wondering, because you've got like Ludicolo and you've got Amoonguss as Spore switch-ins that they're immune to it as well. You might even have a Taunt on the Grimmsnarl and maybe a substitute on the Zacian, but we know that there's probably not a substitute on the Zacian now. But to have like as many answers for Amoonguss, I think is definitely not a bad thing. And I think that's something I realized going through this entire tournament. You just can't have too many answers for it. So, and it just makes that switching so much nicer, and it makes a very oppressive Pokemon just suddenly useless on the field. So Javier switches out his Incineroar as well, a raw switch there, so he doesn't get caught by the fake out, which I quite like. Rillaboom's coming in this time, but there is an unintimidated Incineroar there, so if it's going to offer a Flare Blitz this turn, it could do a lot of damage. But first of all, it's going to be Ludicolo going for the Scald into what was that Incineroar, into the Rillaboom, but it's still a very nice move because of that burn chance, but none this time. Parting Shot instead goes into Javier's Incineroar, of which we haven't seen the speed interactions yet, because Javier's just brought this in for Game 2. So Incineroar is able to now pivot out and likely back into his Zacian here, which is looking pretty good. But no, actually, we do see the Amoonguss here instead. So we've seen all 4 of Ramsés' Pokemon now as the Sludge Bomb comes out from the Amoonguss on Javier's end, doing a very nice amount of damage to that Ludicolo.
Yeah, that's a dangerously large amount of damage. Ludicolo not exactly known for being the bulkiest of Pokemon. I'm kind of wondering if it's in range for U-turn to just kill here. It's a little bit awkward. And from here, the Rillaboom U-turning out does create a little bit of an issue because you're losing that immunity to Spore, but that's not going to matter here. Ramsés is just switching that out, going into the Zacian, which means that the U-turn all of a sudden is going to be great. You either bring in your own Zacian, which you know is faster, or you bring in the Incineroar, get yourself potential fake-out pressure, as well as that Intimidate. But no, the Protect is the option from the Ludicolo, so not quite allowing the switch, and that's going to be a very, very helpful moment, especially with the Spore actually going into the Ludicolo, so reading the switch correctly, but not the slot correctly.
Yeah, I don't think Javier was predicting the Protect on that Ludicolo there. I think, yeah, Ludicolo goes down to the U-turn almost definitely there. I'm not too much lower of attack, and then I'll just Spore whatever comes in for the next slot, or if Ludicolo switch out, I'm Sporing that instead. But yeah, the one move that Javier did not want to see comes out instead. So not an Assault Vest set, or say maybe Expert Belt with the Ice Beam there on Ludicolo, which we may have seen in previous formats. So instead, it's just the Behemoth Blade straight up from Ramsés' end into the Rillaboom. We've seen it live before, it lives again. And let's see the speed interactions here. Yeah, the Ludicolo is faster than the Rillaboom. Rillaboom hangs on. No burn.
And let's see, does this pick up? Yes, it does. Ludicolo's down. That's a pretty big deal here. Of course, that fake-out pressure being retained as the Rillaboom leaves the field. One thing that I was actually just noticing as well is that the Amoonguss, we've talked about it a lot in this set, is such an oppressive thing to play against as a Zacian. But with the safety goggles on the Incineroar, Ramsés has brought 3 Pokemon that are immune to Spore. So it's actually going to be a mission and a half to even successfully land a Spore. But it's a mission that Javier successfully pulls off this turn, as that little opposing doggo is going to have to go take a little bit of a nap.
Yeah, so even, as you said, bringing Amoonguss to this matchup where like it effectively does nothing versus 3 out of the 4 of the team, but a Spore into the restricted slot on that Zacian is very big, because it lets you get so much wiggle room around basically what Ramsés brought is a lot of support for the rest of it. It's lots of fake out, U-turning Pokemon that put a lot of things to sleep. And now his main damage output's off the board for at least a few turns, potentially quite a few. He's suddenly in a really nice position to maybe get in his own Zacian, but we just see the fake out into the Incineroar instead. Zacian takes its guaranteed turn of sleep. And I'm interested to see what the Amoonguss is going to do here. Yeah, it's just the Sludge Bomb. Put something in range, a critical hit as well, so that does do a lot of damage. No poison, but that has probably put it in range of a Zacian attack on Javier's end.
Yeah, especially, maybe it lives a Sacred Sword, right, after an Intimidate, but if it's running close combat, then that Incineroar is definitely going to be down to just a single attack from that Zacian. And from here, though, I think that the way that Javier is playing this out, yeah, he's clicking Spore into the Zacian again, so he's really just trying to make sure that he retains that Amoonguss long enough to get another Spore off, which may well happen. Zacian with the 1-turn sleep, that's going to be really, really nice for Ramsés to at least get that initial Swords Dance up. But the Zacian's going back to sleep, and if the Parting Shot's coming out, you can just switch that back on in, and it's going to be essentially negating that Swords Dance. So still an awkward position for Ramsés here, even with that turn 1 sleep wake up.
It is, and The Amoonguss is the switcher now for that parting shot, so we are seeing some more of the speed interactions of these two Incineroars. How it has we have the faster Zacian and the slower Incineroar, or at least it could be a speed side, but it's at least slower. So Amoonguss is hit by the parting shot as Zacian now does come in. But this could be where maybe the items on Ramsés's Amoonguss come into play as well. I'm not sure if we saw it. We saw the Rocky Helmet on Javier's end, but not on Ramsés. And I don't think we saw a Focus Sash on anything else either, so it could be that. So finally, we do see the Spore after all that pivoting into the Zacian again. So it might not be one turn this time, though. But it's still a very scary Zacian with a lot of attack. And it's going to live one hit at least from this turn, depending on what Javier wants to do. But if Javier has the substitute, it could be a very nice move to go for here. Although we have seen a lot of Sword Stance going around. Let's see if maybe a double into the Amoonguss could potentially pick it up, because if it is that Focus Sash, you want to definitely get around that. But instead, we just see that these actually just switch straight back out.
Yeah, I don't dislike that at all. Based on the amount of damage that we saw a critical Sludge Bomb do to an Incineroar that we know is not Assault Vest, it's doubtful that there's any kind of offensive investment into Javier's Amoonguss himself. So just making sure that he's safe against a potential Spore. It's pretty likely that the Amoonguss would have lived, at least a possibility. So Javier identifying that he's put himself into a very good position this game, not wanting to potentially risk it all on just getting spored. So Spore's going to come on in. Javier's Incineroar is not really going to care too much. And we're going to see just a little bit of chip damage coming in from the opposing Amoonguss. So Javier's Amoonguss continually dishing out a fair bit of damage with that Sludge Bomb. So far, definitely the MVP in this match.
Yeah, both these players have still got a lot of Pokemon left, and it's really interesting to see how they're all trying to pivot in exactly what they want to get that Zacian into the best position that they can. And it looks like it's going to be, an even longer game than we may have even imagined, because the Pollen Puff also helps just heal everything up again to kind of reset the pieces, as it were. So Sludge Bomb comes out from Javier's end. Sludge Bomb, again, is still not getting the poison that Javier really wants, because it's nice. It is definitely nice to have that more offensive option on an Amoonguss, where Spore is a bit lackluster. Say, for something like Clear Smog, or especially Grass Knot in this situation, would be very awkward at the moment for Javier. So he's probably got the best offensive option for his Amoonguss. But it's still a game of pivoting at the moment, because if your Zacian comes in at the wrong time, it gets Spored, it gets Parting Shot, it could get Flare Blitzed as well. So it's both these players are in the same position for that.
Yeah, so a bit of a positive situation here for Ramsés. Neither of these attacks is going into the Zacian, or rather the Sludge Bomb is, but, it's a Zacian, so it's going to be immune to that. But one thing we do need to remember is that Zacian has not yet performed a turn of sleep on this second round of sleep. So he doesn't need to be too worried about that waking up straight away. There's no Akka Berry, but of course that Intimidate did come down onto the Incineroar. So Rocky Helmet's confirmed there with that sort of double recoil. Spore's going to come in, not going to matter whatsoever. And the Amoonguss is now getting dangerously low here. Of course, it can regenerate a little bit by switching on out, but this is a bit of an awkward turn, right? Because if you switch it out, there's a decent chance that you're not going to be landing that Intimidate on an opposing Zacian. So it's an awkward situation for Ramsés. Still, he's done a very good job keeping himself in this game, trying his best to pivot around and give his Zacian the time that it needs. Once again, we're seeing that in action here as the Protect comes on out, but it's still, I feel like maybe Javier's game to lose would be a little too strong, but he's still in a very positive position right now.
He is, but Ramsés is making all the right moves, and another really crucial Protect comes out after that Ludicolo Protect a few turns ago, which buys him a little bit more time for Zacian to wake up, because now it can. So, and it's in a very strong position too, because it has now just come in and unintimidated, unparting shotted. And Javier's Pokemon are looking like they could be in range of this Zacian as well, depending on the targeting. But as we've seen from Ramsés, he's got the Sword Stance, he's got the Behemoth Blade, but we haven't seen a fighting move yet that's come out from it. So it may not even have that. And I think we may have actually seen the Play Rough already in Game 1 against the Regieleki. So unless there's no Protect, it probably doesn't have a fighting move. So this Incineroar on Javier's end is looking pretty strong for him.
Yeah, so we did see the switch there. I think that is definitely going to be trying to play around the potential Spore, which Javier has been very liberal in clicking into that Zacian, which makes a lot of sense. The Amoonguss can do some minor chip, but that's effectively all it can do as long as the Zacian is asleep. Once again, safety goggles, Incineroar, and 2 grass types were what Ramsés brought, so Spore only useful against that Zacian. But in the meantime, that does mean that the incoming Rillaboom will not be intimidated. I believe that was Spore coming out of Ramsés as well. So a good, patient, not too greedy decision by Javier to bring in the Rillaboom instead of his own Zacian.
Yeah, I like that. And he positions it so that he also has the faster fake out this turn too. So he's definitely in the driver's seat this turn, but it just frees up Amoonguss to go for pretty much just a Sludge Bomb at the moment. It's not offering a lot. It's not going to get any KOs, maybe a poison on the Incineroar. So it's still on both these players to see if they can safely position in their Zacian at the moment. And as both players have seen, both of them are not opposed to sporing into slots that are immune to Spore, just in case of that pivoting, because both the Amoongusses aren't very threatened, especially as you just intimidate the Incineroars and you live the hit, and if you switch out again, you just heal up with Regenerators. So one of these guys has got to break the cycle at the moment, and let's see if Ramsés gets his Zacian in as safely as he thinks or hopes he's going to be.
Yeah, the fake out from the Rillaboom, I believe, was going into the Incineroar slot, so this should actually be a safe switch in for Javier. And once again, it's the faster Zacian, so this is going to be a pretty big deal. Sleep on the opposing Zacian means that, yeah, I mean, you could go for a Protect parting shot, but there's no guarantee that the Zacian is going to wake up and land that Protect. So Incin's going to be able to switch back in here, start dropping that attack from the opposing Zacian very, very nicely. And this is going to be big damage into the opposing Zacian unless it manages to wake up, or we see a switch, in which case the Amoonguss is just going to go down.
Yeah, so Rillaboom switches out into the Incineroar, which is definitely what you want to be switching in versus a Zacian and an Incineroar on the opposing end. So we have the mirror back on the field again. But Javier's end, we have seen that faster Zacian. So here it comes with that Behemoth Blade into Ramsés's Zacian and does a lot of damage. So putting it in range of a Flare Blitz, even at probably at -1. Putting it in range of another Behemoth Blade, probably at minus or at the neutral as well. So that parting shot does come out from the Incineroar and Ramsés' end. So he's able to bring that Amoonguss in. But Javier's Incineroar is still on the field. So it's able to offer a lot of offense versus the Amoonguss as well. And we can see it's quite healthy still, thanks to that Regenerator, but it still could be in range, especially from a double up. And Ramsés' Zacian, I still believe, could still be asleep for another turn. So it's still tricky, actually, for his position. And Javier still has his Rillaboom in the back as well for yet another fake out. So he's up in Pokemon, he's up in support at the moment, and he is the fastest Zacian. So I think if Javier plays this smartly, I think it's his game to win at the moment, but it's still very much up in the air with all these Pokemon and these amazing players still on the field.
Yeah, some players might have gotten greedy there. You could go for the fake out onto the Amoonguss and just try to land the KO on the opposing Zacian, but identifying that A, the opposing Zacian could wake up and protect, or B, this whole thing could happen, or the opposing Incineroar switches in. Javier continues to play patiently. I love the way he's just saying, all right, you know what? There's like 7 moves I could do that are good. I'm just going to take my time. I'm going to make sure that I decide on the absolutely most optimal move that can't lose me the game. Because at this point, it is very much a mindset thing against like, how am I trying to win the game? It kind of switches into how can I prevent myself from losing the game, if that makes sense. And Javier is doing just a great job of continuing to slow the game down, give himself the ability to position. And one of the things that we have to consider is that we're getting dangerously close to timer being a thing as well. And there's still 4 Pokemon alive for Javier. So if it were to go to timer, let's say that this whole stalemate continues for however long is left in the game, Javier would win if we hit timer right now on having 4 Pokemon to the 3 of Ramsés. So overall, I love the way Javier is playing this. He's doing just a really, really good job of just optimizing every single one of his plays.
That's a really good point, actually. And that definitely puts him in the strong position as if he makes the safer plays, he should come out on top overall. So he gets in that Rillaboom yet again. No Pollen Puff read save from the Ramsés end, which is this Rillaboom probably is in range of at the moment. Fake out into the Incineroar slot, keeping his Amoonguss nice and safe, but he has switched out into the Incineroar again. And there is the Pollen Puff this time. So it does look like Javier's Rillaboom is going down. So that's one more piece that Javier does not have anymore. And now it's a 3-on-3 of the same Pokemon at the moment. Luckily, Ramsés' Pokemon is shiny, so that helps my brain a little bit more. But yeah, we do see the reveal of the speed stats a little bit more again. Again, revealing Javier Incineroar is the slower one, which actually in this situation is probably what you want. So he has, because you get that to pivot last, so you get more momentum from what your opponent's going to do. You have more information. So he has the upper hand for his Zacian and his Incineroar in this matchup, which is really crucial. And as we just had a sneak peek there, Javier also has the fighting move on his Zacian as well, so he's able to hit the Incineroar for a lot more damage.
Oh, and that's going to be more than enough to take out this Zacian if it's close combat. If it's Sacred Sword, the opposing Zacian may still live, but I believe we saw a double up there. 3 minutes left in this game, but the Sacred Sword comes out. And that is not quite enough, but it is going to be Flare Blitz. Zacian is the target? Yeah, okay, so the Zacian goes down, and that is a massive deal. At this point, there's not very much in the way of damage output for Ramsés anymore. Even if you were able to land a Spore or something, that would not really swing the game in his favor, but instead it was a Pollen Puff into the allied Zacian, going for the Hail Mary heal up, but it wasn't quite able to land.
Yeah, unfortunate for Ramsés there. I think maybe he was predicting a target into the Amoonguss slot that turn instead, but having seen the Protect from the Amoonguss previously and knowing Zacian could even be asleep for another turn, it's a safer slot to target into, and it definitely pays off there too. Maybe if the Amoonguss was faster than the Incineroar, he could have got the Pollen off before the Flare Blitz, but the Flare Blitz was still probably taking it down, and I don't think it was intimidated at that point either. So a really nice piece to go down is your opponent's Zacian. And as we've seen, there's only 2 minutes left on the match timer, and even though both these players have lost some Pokemon recently, Javier is now still up on Pokemon again. And it doesn't look like he's in a position to lose Pokemon anytime soon either. So he has that win con in the bag, as well as Ramsés having no Zacian yet.
Yeah, we saw initially a switch out from the Zacian, but opting for the Protect instead, I think that's definitely the better choice, given that timer is so close to being up. It's going to be able to just kill another turn, effectively. And that buys the Incineroar the time it needs to drop a parting shot on the opposing Incineroar. And now Incineroar can come back in. All of a sudden, the opposing Incineroar is -2. Flare Blitz isn't going to do anything anymore unless it lands a crit, especially into a really bulky Pokemon like Amoonguss, which looks like it's going to be coming in on the right-hand side.
It does. So, as we can see, Javier is bringing down the time a little bit more because Ramsés' out is, as you say, that critical hit Flare Blitz, because that will mean it'll take out the Amoonguss, it'll take out the Zacian, and in the Incineroar 1v1, you just need to hope that your Amoonguss is more healthy at that point, so you win the match on time. So, Pollen Puff is healing up the Incineroar. Let's see if the Zacian can take out this Incineroar, but
as long as Javier identifies it, he has enough turn time to just have the game end. The game is over as long as he just waits. We'll see if he realizes. It looks like he's locking in some moves, but as long as he waits 25 seconds, the game's over, and he doesn't actually need to go for a turn. But I don't actually think there's a win condition. If he switches Incineroar in as he's queued up and hits Protect on the Amoonguss, I don't think there's a win condition left for Ramsés here. So Javier with a really, really, really well-played adaptation. Game 1, he kind of looked just 1 or 2 turns behind the whole game, right? Like, he just looked like he didn't have the right Pokemon with him. He didn't have the Incineroar in game number 1. And this game, we saw how pivotal that Incineroar was in helping that Amoonguss put him into the absolute winning position that got him the equalizer in this set. So 1-1, we'll see who's able to take it home.
Yeah, 1-1 this set versus Spain and Chile. And like a really interesting match there where both players got rid of the unique secondary fake out mon in that Ludicolo versus Rillaboom. And then it was just that really intense positioning game, like so many mind games going on, like lots of clicking parting shot because that's such a safe move to click. And then lots of clicking Spore into whatever slot just in case someone dares switch in the only mon that does damage on for the rest of the team. So it was interesting to see how both these expert players were pivoting around, and it just came down to maybe Ramsés trying to make a little bit of a read and switching in that Zacian right at the end there, where he was maybe hoping that Amoonguss would get targeted, because if it did and that Zacian came in safely and you wake up the next turn, you are in a very solid position to take probably a KO, and even if your Amoonguss goes down, your Incineroar comes in, you've got another fake out. But like, as I say, it was a tough position for either player to call, but and I think if Ramsés had pulled it off, it would have been pretty cool. But as we now know, we're going to game 3, so I imagine both players will probably be quite comfortable with their selections from last time. As you said, the Regieleki doesn't have a huge role anymore, and as Javier should be realizing, because he has the faster Zacian and the slower Incineroar, and maybe that Sludge Ball in the Amoonguss is quite nice too. Like, for the mirror match, he's actually got the advantage here. So, and if he plays to that, I think he's got a good chance of winning this game 3 as well. Unfortunately, the Rillaboom has a slower fake out than the Ludicolo that we've realized from this game, so he has that, but Ludicolo is very squishy, as we saw, so it went very quickly down to that U-turn, and Rillaboom stuck around quite a while.
One of the things that I think would be kind of interesting to see from Ramsés, I'm going to put this out there, I have not played this variation of a Zacian team, so this might be bad, but I kind of wonder if just throwing Flare Blitzes in against those 4 would have been good. Because there's 3 Pokemon that are weak to fire. At the very end, like, that was a game that went to timer. That kind of chip damage could very easily add up over the course of the game, especially when you have Pollen Puff on your side to sort of heal up that recoil damage and your safety goggles, so you don't have to worry about the Spore from the opposing Amoonguss.
Yeah, I like that too. As you said, you're getting hit bound by recoil, but you can heal straight back up immediately. And yeah, Incineroar Amoonguss is actually a really nice lead. But actually, yeah, Javier brings back the Regieleki this game. So maybe he did really miss it in that game 1, offering a little bit more speed control and a lot more damage output than Rillaboom versus stuff like the Incineroar and potentially the Ludicolo, depending on some Intimidate spam going around. But again, another reveal that this Incineroar on Javier's end is the slower variant. So, but interestingly, the fake out into the Incineroar slot on Ramsés' Incineroar is an interesting position. But Incineroar Amoonguss is pretty safe versus what we've seen. So I don't blame him for doing that. But Regieleki is the immediate switch out.
Yeah, I have to wonder if the Regieleki was essentially a read into Ramsés bringing the Pelipper. But we haven't seen the Pelipper all series. I'm not sure if I love the Regieleki adaptation, but we'll see. Javier is an incredible player. He has not lost yet in this tournament. Same is, of course, true for Ramsés. One of them has to get a loss at the end of this game. We'll see who it is. But I don't know. I'm not sure what the Regieleki really brings to the table, given that it doesn't need to speed control. Because from Javier's perspective, your Zacian is already faster. And the Pelipper hasn't been coming to the games. So this is a bit of a weird decision from him. But we'll see exactly how that pays off. Behemoth Blade coming in, going to do some massive damage. That is so much damage. And if there's a Flare Blitz coming in from this Incin, well, yeah, Flare Blitz coming on out. Amoonguss was the MVP in the last game. It is gone on turn 2 in game number 3. So that's going to make life infinitely harder for Javier.
Well, yeah, straight down there. That's going to be very big. Parting Shot is the last move to go for Javier into Ramsés Incineroar. He's going to be able to bring in something as well. So he is able to get like the switch back into his Zacian or his Regieleki, and very much likely Incineroar again this turn, because that's the main thing you want to be switching in on other Incineroars and Zacians. So he does put himself in a nice momentous position. But actually, no, we do see the Zacian coming in instead. So I suppose there is no fake out on Incineroar this turn, and bringing in Zacian does give you the ability to take the knockout. But Ramsés has all of his tools still available, especially that Amoonguss in the back. So he's able to protect, maybe pivot around a little bit here. So, but Javier, especially knowing there's no protect on this Incineroar on Ramsés' end, it's quite safe to double target into that slot, potentially with like a Thunderbolt and a Behemoth Blade, and that's probably going to take out anything in that slot right now. And
this is such a risky play from Javier. He's going close combat Thunderbolt into the Incineroar. That's gonna be enough to knock it out. But what would have also happened is if the opposing Zacian targeted into him, with his Zacian being faster, all of a sudden, it's going to one-hit KO that with the defense drop from the close combat. Oh, it's Sacred Sword, actually. It's not close combat. Never mind. Everything I'm saying is not relevant right now. But either way, the Amoonguss is going to be able to tank both of these hits very, very easily. The double switch from Ramsés, you're being forced to double switch is never an amazing feeling, because you know you're going to be taking damage on your side essentially for free. But he positions himself into a way where he has fake out pressure, he has Amoonguss, and with the fake out and the potential spore, Zacian is not able to target down that Amoonguss right now because it has to be scared of a Ludicolo.
He does. It's an interesting position to be in. Ramsés is up on Pokemon at the moment. He's got the fake out, which I believe we have seen from this Ludicolo. I don't think I'm that crazy at the moment, but Incineroar does come in instead from the Amoonguss. So getting in Intimidate is pretty crucial too. So he's kind of doing a similar play that we did sort of game one. Maybe expecting the double protect on Javier's end and switching in his own fake out. But Javier doesn't go for that at all. He goes straight for the yellow to both of these Pokemon. Gets the speed drop, which doesn't seem to be too crucial. But the Behemoth Blade on the Javier's Zacian end is the move of choice. But it does go to the Incineroar. I'd be curious to see how much that did to Ludicolo, though.
Yeah, even at neutral, that might well have picked off. We know that Ludicolo is extremely frail. It took something like... It was KO'd from 40% by U-turn. So it's not very bulky. But at this point, Incineroar takes a Behemoth Blade like it's nothing. But it's taken so many hits at this point that you do have to start getting a little bit concerned about how low its HP is getting. The burn on the Regieleki is kind of nice, a little bit of residual damage. Actually, that's really nice. I think Fake Out plus Burn from the Incineroar would pick off the Regieleki here. So that burn actually putting Regieleki in a bit of an awkward position. But we'll have to see just how this Zacian can fare on this turn, because I guess the switch out on the Incin. Okay, Amoonguss coming in. Let's see what the choice was. A Behemoth Blade's not going to KO from here. There's no way the Amoonguss is going down, but it could take some pretty big damage.
Yeah, Ramsés is going for a nice little position here. Gets the Incineroar back out, which means you can switch it back in against a Zacian and another Incineroar, which is very nice. Yeah, and he does catch Javier going for the Sacred Sword again and getting some free damage, actually more damage onto the Zacian, looked like, than onto the Amoonguss that turn. So he's done a little nice job to kind of get the Amoonguss into a good position where now if Ramsés brings in his Incineroar from the Ludicolo slot, it's definitely living the double up from Javier's end, so he's able to get a spore off potentially. So that definitely puts Javier on the back foot, especially as he can't Volt Switch out either, so he can't get that chip and get out either. But with what's on the field, Amoonguss on Javier's end would be another nice switch. So we're still in a position where neither player has absolutely checkmated the other opponent completely. But it is Incineroar coming in again. Yeah, if it is safety goggles, it's pretty safe switch into. But it is going to be taking a lot from a water-type damage attack from the Scald, which is a pretty likely target, especially into a Zacian, which you do want to burn as well.
Yeah, the game, like you said, there has not been a checkmate at this point. Oh, the Ludicolo gets so close to going down as well. That's so unfortunate. But while there hasn't been a checkmate, I feel like the position for Javier is that he's playing this game out really, really well post turn 2. The question is just whether or not that turn 2 loss of Amoonguss is going to be too much for him to overcome.
Yeah, and I think it probably is, because now Javier's down to his last 2 Pokemon now, and that means he cannot switch. He can't switch out of the drops, he can't parting shot, he can't get his fake out back in anymore, and Ramsés still has all 4 of his Pokemon in this game now. So, and Incineroar is just itching itself right in the back, ready to come in right now. Get the drops immediately. Amoonguss wants to switch out because it's got the regenerator. It's just the perfect rotation of Pokemon going in at the moment for Ramsés.
This is a good read, though. This is a very good read. Sacred Sword going into the Incineroar, Flare Blitz into that slot as well. And remember that Ludicolo's -1 speed from an Electro Web, which means that there's a possibility that it's slower than the Incineroar. The Protect comes out instead, but that's still going to be a KO on that Incineroar. Neutral attack Zacian is still pretty scary, and now there's no threat of it going down to -1, -2, -3, etc. with continued cycling. So, Javier is not going to be too upset with how that turn went.
Yeah, it's true. He's definitely calls it correctly. Ramsés still protects from that Flare Blitz, so it's still a threat going into the following turn. but Amoongus is now the switch in. So no more Intimidate on Ramsés' end. So yeah, it's interesting because Incineroar is in a very nice position if this Ludicolo, as you say, Stefan, is slower because of that really crucial Electro Web from Regieleki. Regieleki's still living on in Javier's team, even now in turn like 1000. So Javier is still looking pretty strong with his Zashi. It's not at -1. I think it's just at neutral at the moment. And with those 3 attacks, he's looking pretty strong. However, he's going to have to protect if he wants to avoid a Spore here, unless there is that double up. And as we saw, there's that protect on Amoongus, but Ramsés goes for the Rage Powder instead.
Yeah, it was a double into the Amoongus regardless, so overall, I mean, the Ludicolo is going to live to fight another day, but that Amoongus is not. That is a Flare Blitz without Okaberry. With a -1 instant, maybe it survives, but I kind of feel like the answer is going to be no here. Amoongus goes down, and suddenly, 2v2, almost KO'd Ludicolo. And while we do have a +1 Zacian on Ramsés' side, we know that Javier's is faster.
Yeah, and
we've
there's
also
the live.
just confirmed, by the way, that the Incineroar is indeed faster than Ludicolo right now.
Yeah, we have. So the Zacian comes in. Let's see how much health it's on. So, okay, it's got a lot of health left. I think it took like some Rocky Helmet from maybe Javier's Amoongus or something. And it's had a lot of attack too. But so it's probably not in range of Zacian, but yeah.
It's all about the crit. It's all
about that. It's still down to the last turn, like as it has been for a lot of games. But here it comes.
I think it's a critical hit to win the game. It doesn't look like it's going to land, though. And the Zacian should be able to pick off Javier's Zacian in response. A Vengeance can... No, he actually goes into the Incineroar. Okay, let's see how much Skull does. This is a little weird now, but I'm pretty sure Ramsés is able to lock this up now.
Yeah, this needs to 2-shot, which it does. So... yeah, that should be it now. I can't think of any spread moves that Zacian gets. Oh, Snarl. It gets Snarl. But we've seen that. And it's not going to be take the biscuit for this one. So unless Ramsés maybe has very sweaty fingers and slips on his controllers, I think he's probably got this. So
Joy-Con drift. Joy-Con drift.
Well, that too. But yeah, it's actually a very close game. It didn't look like a close game even for this one. Actually turned out to really come down to the wire as yet. Ludicolo takes the final KO in this best of 3 set, Spain versus Chile. And Ramsés Quintana comes out of this match 6-0 in this Victory World Cup of VGC at the moment, which is pretty amazing. And with a Ludicolo too.
Yeah, I mean, that was... Mirror B is so proud right now. But that was such a great set, and we talked about it a couple times in that match. You know, that turn 2 from Javier was so sad, but he still managed to bring it back to that close. I mean, that Ludicolo must have been on less than 10 HP at the very end of the game. That was such a great set by both of them. We said going into it, both of these players are undefeated. This is going to be a very, very high-level set. No sort of matchup auto loss or anything, just a clean Zacian mirror going up, and overall just a really, really well played set on both sides. Big congratulations to Ramsés for claiming his 6th consecutive win in the World Cup. And Chile versus Spain promises to have some more amazing matches. So if you guys are following the results on the website, definitely keep your eyes on that one. Definitely keep your eyes on the YouTube, because I'm sure a couple of them are going to be going up there as well.
Absolutely. So that concludes our game 2 of our 5-game stream today. So we are still not even halfway at the moment. So we've got next coming up, I believe it is Switzerland versus Guatemala, I believe.
No, Switzerland versus Argentina, good sir.
Argentina, apologies.
We already played Guatemala, and we don't talk about that match.
I'm sure you did very well, Stefan. So we've got a very exciting match coming up next. So we're going to take a little short break. So please stay tuned, and we will be back with you very shortly.